Ghosting is not just someone not texting back. Ghosting is your nervous system being handed an unsolved problem with no ending. One day there is contact, warmth, flirting, routine, plans, maybe intimacy, maybe daily presence. The next day, there is nothing. No explanation, no boundary, no goodbye. Just silence. And your body does not register that silence as neutral. It registers it as danger. That is why ghosting can feel physical: tight chest, nausea, shaking, insomnia, loss of appetite, obsessive checking, a heavy drop in your stomach when you wake up. You are not weak for feeling that. Your nervous system is responding to a sudden loss of predictability in a bond that your body had started to treat like safety. In this episode, we are going to map the control loop of ghosting and withdrawal, stage by stage, so you understand what is happening inside you, what can be happening inside them, and what to do so you stop being controlled by silence. Because the goal is not to become numb. The goal is to restore your body to reality and protect your dignity while you heal. If this kind of clarity helps your nervous system settle, hit subscribe. PsychBond is a daily decoder for psychology, relationships, and avoidant and anxious attachment patterns, so you stop guessing. Here is the hard truth. The reason ghosting hurts so much is because your brain treats it like a survival problem, not a dating problem. In secure connection, endings are communicated. Even if it hurts, your nervous system can file it. In ghosting, your nervous system cannot file it. It keeps searching. It keeps scanning. It keeps trying to solve. And that solving becomes the addiction. So, let us map the loop. Stage 1 is attunement. This is the beginning of contact and bonding. You are texting. You are laughing. You are sharing parts of your day. They respond. They initiate. You start to build a rhythm. Even if it is early, your nervous system starts learning a pattern. Pattern is what creates safety. Not promises, not words. Pattern. Stage 1 is when your body starts to believe this person exists in your day. You may not call it a relationship yet, but your nervous system starts updating. It starts predicting. If you have anxious attachment, this is also when hope rises, because connection feels like relief from uncertainty. If you have avoidant attachment, this is when connection can feel good, as long as it feels free and not binding. Either way, a rhythm forms. And once a rhythm forms, your nervous system begins to attach. Stage 2 is investment. In this stage, you start giving more attention, more emotional availability, more time, more imagination about where this could go. You begin to prioritize them. You may share vulnerability. You may have sex. You may talk about future plans, even lightly. This is where your nervous system starts linking the person to regulation. A text calms you. A call soothes you. A good morning message becomes a signal that the world is stable. Again, this can happen even if you are not trying to be attached. Your body bonds to repetition and relief. If their presence has been inconsistent before, the moments of closeness can feel even more powerful because relief after uncertainty is a strong bonding force. This is important because later, when the silence arrives, your body will not just miss them. It will miss the regulation you were borrowing. Stage 3 is rupture. Ghosting begins here, and it often begins subtly. Replies slow down. They get vague. They stop initiating. They start using softer language. Maybe they cancel. Maybe they disappear for a day and come back like nothing happened. Many people miss stage 3 because they rationalize. They tell themselves they are busy. They tell themselves not to be dramatic. They tell themselves it is early. But your nervous system notices. A nervous system is a pattern detector. It does not care about your excuses. It cares about predictability. So even in stage 3, your body starts to tense. This is where phone checking begins. This is where you start reading tone. This is where you start thinking about what you said. The body begins to prepare for loss before the mind accepts it. Stage 4 is silence. This is the defining event. The communication stops or collapses into near nothing. You send a message and it sits. There is no reply. There is no explanation. You might see them online. You might see views. You might see activity elsewhere, or you might see nothing at all. The uncertainty is brutal either way, because the problem is not only absence. The problem is unknowing. When there is a clean ending, your nervous system can grieve. When there is silence, your nervous system keeps searching because it does not know whether it is over, whether something happened, whether you did something wrong, whether they will return, whether you should wait, whether you should move on. That ambiguity is a threat state. Your body stays activated because it cannot predict the next moment. Your attachment system treats a sudden silence like separation from a bond that is still active. And separation is not processed as a gentle emotion. It is processed as a signal that something is wrong. That is why your body acts like it needs to find them. That is why you wake up checking. That is why you feel a surge when you see their name and a crash when you see nothing. Your nervous system is trying to restore predictability. Even if your conscious mind says this is not logical, your body is reacting to the loss of a safety cue it had already started to rely on. Stage 5 is activation. This is where ghosting becomes physical. Your stress system turns on. You can feel it in your chest, your gut, your jaw, your sleep. You start scanning your environment. You lose appetite or you crave sugar. You cannot focus. You keep opening the phone like a reflex. You replay conversations. You create theories. This is not because you are irrational. It is because your brain is trying to reduce uncertainty. The brain hates unsolved problems, especially unsolved problems that involve attachment. So the brain tries to solve by gathering data. Checking is data seeking. Rereading is data seeking. Stalking is data seeking. Writing drafts is data seeking. The mind believes one more piece of data will restore safety. But silence gives no data, so you keep checking. That is the control loop. Stage 6 is protest. Protest is the nervous system attempt to restore connection. You may double text. You may send a long message. You may act cool. You may act angry. You may send a meme. You may ask if everything is okay. You may ask for closure. You may post something hoping they see it. You may try no contact to trigger them. Protest can look different depending on your style, but the function is the same. Your body is trying to pull the person back into predictability. Even if your words are calm, the nervous system behind it is urgent. This is why ghosting feels humiliating, not because you have no dignity, but because your body is fighting to restore safety while your mind is trying to look composed. Stage 7 is intermittent reinforcement. This is where ghosting becomes addictive. Sometimes they return. They reply days later. They act normal. They say they were busy. They apologize lightly. They give you a little warmth. And your body floods with relief. Relief feels like love. It feels like proof. It feels like you are okay again. Your brain learns that the way out of pain is them. That is how a person becomes a nervous system drug. The return does not fix the pattern. It reinforces it. Because now your brain has learned that if you wait and suffer long enough, you might get a reward. And variable rewards create the strongest conditioning. The worst part is that the return is often small enough to keep you hopeful, but not large enough to make you safe. They might send a casual "hey" or reply as if nothing happened. That kind of return gives you contact without accountability, so the loop keeps running. The difference between a real return and a loop return is simple. A real return comes with ownership of the silence, a reason that makes sense, and a specific plan for what changes next time. A loop return comes with warmth and no structure. That is why people stay stuck for months with someone who goes silent and returns. The relationship is not the bond. The relationship is the loop. Stage 8 is collapse. After enough cycles, your system starts to change. You feel smaller. You feel anxious in good moments. You feel numb. You feel hypervigilant. You start doubting yourself. You start questioning your worth. You start bargaining with your standards. You start accepting crumbs. You start calling basic respect a lot. You start confusing relief with love. This is where ghosting becomes more than a dating event. It becomes nervous system conditioning. Now that we have the loop, we have to name the two biggest misunderstandings that keep people trapped. First misunderstanding is believing ghosting is a message you need to decode. Most people treat ghosting like a puzzle. What does it mean? Do they miss me? Are they scared? Did I say something? Are they avoidant? Are they depressed? The mind wants a story because story feels like control. But silence is not a clue. Silence is a behavior. And behavior is the message. If someone can disappear without communication, they are showing you their capacity and their character in the context of connection. Even if they have reasons, the impact is still harm. Second misunderstanding is believing closure will come from them. Closure is not a text they send. Closure is a decision you make when the behavior has already given you the information. If you are trying to decide whether ghosting is the end, stop looking for a perfect sign and look for the simplest reality. When someone wants to stay connected, they communicate. When someone has capacity, they do not let days pass with no word while you are left in panic. Silence is not always a permanent ending, but it is always a statement about how they handle responsibility. And if they can handle responsibility only by disappearing, then the relationship shape will keep injuring your body even if they come back. Your closure can be based on one rule. No communication is not neutral. No communication is an answer. Now let us talk about what can be happening inside the person who ghosts, because understanding this helps you stop personalizing. But it should not become an excuse that keeps you waiting. There are a few common drivers. One driver is avoidance. They feel closeness, then feel overwhelmed, then disappear to regulate. Another driver is conflict avoidance. They do not want to have a hard conversation, so they choose silence. Another driver is opportunism. They keep doors open and close them when they want. Another driver is immaturity. They do not have repair skills. Another driver is shame. They feel guilty, so they avoid you, which creates more harm. Another driver is a new option. They shift attention and do not want accountability. The driver matters less than the behavior pattern, because whatever the driver, your nervous system still experiences the same injury. The question is not, why did they ghost? The question is, what does this pattern cost you, and what boundary do you need now? Now we need to name why this feels physical. There are 3 reasons. First, unpredictability triggers threat. Your body is built to react to uncertainty as potential danger. Second, attachment bonds are regulation bonds. Your nervous system uses close people as co-regulation. When that co-regulation is removed abruptly, the body can experience withdrawal. Third, the mind searches for meaning and cannot find it, so it loops. That looping keeps stress hormones high, which keeps the body in symptoms. This is why the best advice after ghosting is not just distract yourself, it is to end the loop. Because as long as the loop runs, your body stays in threat. So, what do? We break the loop with a sequence that protects dignity and calms the nervous system. Step 1 is the one message rule. If you need to send something, send one clear message and stop. Not a paragraph, not a chase. One line that restores your self-respect. Something like this. I noticed the silence. I am not available for disappearing. If you want to talk, you can reach out with clarity. If not, I wish you well. That is it. This message is not for them. It is for your body. It tells your nervous system there is a boundary. It creates an ending structure, even if they did not give you one. If you have already sent multiple messages, do not spiral about it. Your next move is still the same. Stop. The loop ends when you stop feeding it. Step 2 is remove access triggers. This means you stop checking their profile. You mute. You unfollow if needed. You remove the thread from the top of your screen. You stop watching their stories. Not as punishment, as protection. Because every view, every check, every tiny exposure reactivates the loop. Your nervous system cannot heal if you keep touching the wound. Step 3 is replace the regulation. This is the part people skip. If your nervous system was using them to regulate, you must build new regulation sources fast. Movement, sunlight, protein and hydration, sleep protection, a simple daily routine, time with a friend, a short walk after meals, breath that actually lowers your heart rate. You do not need a spiritual overhaul. You need nervous system basics. Your body needs signals of safety to come from your life, not from a person who is silent. Step 4 is proof thinking. Proof thinking is when you make decisions based on patterns you can verify, not stories you cannot. The proof is simple. A person who wants connection does not disappear without communication. A person with capacity does not create panic as a relationship norm. Even if they return, the proof is whether they repair. Repair means they name what happened, take responsibility, and offer a different behavior next time. If they return with sweetness and no repair, that is not a comeback. That is a reset attempt. Do not confuse a ping with change. Step 5 is the return protocol. Because many people get ghosted and then the person returns, if that happens, you need a calm rule. A return is not a reset. Warmth is not repair. So your response is brief and structural. Before we continue, I need to understand what happened during the silence and what will be different. You are not asking for a confession. You are asking for safety. Safety requires acknowledgement, a repair behavior, and follow-through. If they respond with blame, vagueness, or a joke, you restate the boundary once and step back. You can say, I am open to reconnecting, but I am not available for disappearing. If you cannot talk about the silence and agree on what changes, we cannot continue. That is not an ultimatum. That is a standard. Standards protect your nervous system from living in constant threat. If they cannot answer, you do not argue. You do not beg. You end it. Because if you accept a return without repair, you teach their nervous system and yours that this is allowed. You train the loop. Now, I want to speak directly to the anxious listener who feels tempted to do protest behavior. You may feel like you need to send one more message, one more explanation, one more request, one more closure question. But notice the function. The function is not communication. The function is relief seeking. Your body is trying to remove the pain by getting a response. That is understandable. But if you let your behavior be controlled by relief seeking, you become vulnerable to anyone who withholds, because they can control your nervous system by controlling access. The adult move is to reclaim the lever. You do not need them to respond to calm your body. You need to teach your body that you can create safety without them. Now, let us address the moment that scares people the most. The moment you stop checking. The moment you stop texting. The moment you stop watching. It can feel like you are letting them go. It can feel like you are dying. That is withdrawal. It is not romance. It is nervous system conditioning. Withdrawal passes. It peaks and it falls. If you keep touching the wound, it stays high. If you let it pass, it drops. You do not need to be perfect. You need to be consistent. If you relapse and check, do not shame yourself. Come back to the rule. Stop feeding the loop. Now, let us bring in a few scenes so you can recognize your own pattern and not get tricked by it again. Scene 1 is the early bond. You talk every day for 2 weeks. It feels steady. Then one day, they disappear for 3 days and come back with a casual, "sorry." Your body feels relief, and you accept it. The loop starts. Scene 2 is the intimacy bond. You get close, you share vulnerability, then silence hits. You think the silence means you scared them. You chase. They return with warmth. You feel chosen. Then it happens again. Scene 3 is the social media ghost. They do not reply to you, but they post, they view, they like. That creates maximum confusion because you are being seen but not held. That is a power imbalance. Scene 4 is the intermittent responder. They reply just enough to keep you attached, but never enough to give you structure. That is the definition of being kept in the loop. None of these scenes are love. They are control loop dynamics. Now we need to talk about the difference between being busy and ghosting, because people get gaslit by this. Busy has communication. Busy has a return time. Busy does not make you guess for days with no word. Busy is someone saying, "I am slammed, I will talk tomorrow." Ghosting is absence without communication. If someone cannot do basic communication, they do not have capacity for secure connection. Now, let us talk about why people ghost right after they act devoted, because that is the specific pain. Devotion creates expectation. Expectation creates pressure in some nervous systems. So they disappear to reduce the pressure. But again, intention does not erase impact. If they cannot tolerate the expectation that comes with closeness, they cannot tolerate a relationship. A relationship requires continuity. If their only tool is disappearing, they will keep hurting people. Now, let us talk about the part that keeps people haunted: the lack of explanation. Your mind wants to know why. But here is what your nervous system needs more than why. It needs a boundary. It needs a rule. It needs a structure that restores predictability. The why will not restore safety. The boundary will. This is why closure comes from you. You decide what silence means for your life. You decide what behavior you accept. And you decide how you respond when someone returns. There is also a second loop inside the main loop that makes the physical feelings stronger. It is the meaning-making loop. When a person disappears, your mind does not only miss them, it starts assigning meaning to the disappearance. You replay the last conversation like evidence. You try to locate the exact sentence that caused the silence. That is the brain trying to regain control by finding a cause. But in ghosting, the cause is often inside them, not inside your last text. So the meaning-making loop turns into self-blame, and self-blame keeps your body on alert because it thinks it must prevent this from happening again. This is why ghosting can make you feel jumpy even in your next connection if you do not close the loop with a boundary. Another part that confuses people is indirect contact. They do not reply, but they watch your stories, like a post, or send a casual "hey" that ignores the silence. Indirect contact is not repair. It is access testing without accountability. For an anxious system, it feels like being seen but not held, which keeps you stuck. So you set a simple rule. You treat indirect contact like noise, unless it comes with repair. Now, what do you do in the first days when your body is screaming? You use a one-message rule, and then you stop. I notice the silence. I am not available for disappearing. If you want to reconnect, reach out with clarity. If not, I wish you well. Then, you remove access triggers. You stop checking, you mute, you stop watching. Not as punishment, as protection. Every check reactivates the loop. If they return later, you do not treat it as a reset. You treat it as a repair test. Before we continue, I need to understand what happened during the silence and what will be different. Repair is them owning it and offering a new behavior, like communicating space with a return time, then actually doing it. Warmth without repair is just the loop restarting. One more truth. Ghosting can hit old wounds. It can feel like you were erased. That is why it feels physical. So part of healing is giving yourself the opposite message. You are worth clarity. You are worth respect. You do not have to audition for basic communication. One practical move that helps your body fast is to give it a predictable day for a week. Wake time, meals, a walk, and a no-phone window at night. Predictability tells your nervous system you are not in free fall. If you feel the urge to check, name it as withdrawal. Then, do a replacement action for 60 seconds. Drink water. Step outside. Move your shoulders and jaw. Exhale slowly, longer than you inhale. These small actions sound simple, but they break the automatic link between panic and checking. And remember, you do not need to announce no contact to make it real. Silence is a boundary when it is chosen by you, not forced by them. The point is not to look unbothered. The point is to stop feeding a pattern that makes your body shake. Let us close with the recalibration that ends ghosting withdrawal at the root. Stop asking, what does their silence mean? Start asking, what does this pattern cost me? Stop asking, how do I get them back? Start asking, what kind of connection do I want to live under? Stop confusing relief with love. Love includes communication. Love includes repair. Love includes continuity. And if someone cannot offer that, your body will keep feeling unsafe around them because the structure is unsafe. Your body is not asking you to be perfect. It is asking you to be safe. Welcome to PsychBond. You're safe here.